Alright, so this is a little weirder than what I've done before, where I've talked about the different campaigns. I'm here with Nexas, who ran the Shackled City campaign that I've been playing for that book. For how long have we...
About 9 months.
9 months, yeah. So, enough time for us to bounce different girlfriends and jobs, and pretty much every large change that happened during Shackled City.
It's the benefit of a long-running campaign.
Yeah. Remember back in the day when some of our players weren't married?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, way back in the day. Alright, so I figured we'd do kind of like a, Spoody went over his campaigns and highlights, so I figured I'd drag him, and, because I don't remember everything. He is a little more obsessed when he has the book, so he would. And then sometime next couple weeks I want to grab all the people who played and get their reactions. Pretty sure one's going to talk more than the rest, but we'll get everyone's reaction. So, Sean, you want to give us just a quick overview of Shackled City? Like, have you run that before? Have you been in that before?
Yes. Once upon a time, I was in a very long-lasting campaign that went years, and eventually our DM decided that he wanted to run modules instead of just doing his own thing, so we ended up starting doing things from Dungeon Magazine, which Shackled City was originally published in Dungeon. And it was a fairly decently written campaign. It was produced by the Paizo company, which after the end of 3.5, they really got a lot of fame with their Pathfinder series. But as a player, I played through this campaign. I was sort of that guy in the campaign for a bit, for a lot of the campaign. So
How do you mean that guy?
Well, that guy is the one who always causes trouble, always says the wrong thing to the NPCs or uses magic completely irresponsibly.
Wasn't it nice to be on the opposite end of that coin? Watching that guy instead of being that guy?
Well, in the years after being a player in Shackled City, I started DMing more, and I certainly had a lot of my just desserts given to me.
So what you're saying is it wasn't your first day?
No. We'll get to that first day comment soon enough.
How about we dive into the book then? Let's go over the players that we had. So we had, I was in there playing my first spellcaster and healer as a cleric.
Yeah.
A want to do nothing at all cleric. I was pushed into healing. I didn't really want to do much of anything. So, yeah, there's that. There's Brian's character. Hi, Brian!
Hi!
Brian's character, who started off as the affluent, irritating man about town.
I like pompous dickhead.
Pompous dickhead. Okay, he prefers pompous dickhead, so we'll start with that. We had Fang,
who was our druid.
Druid with the never-dying
animal companion. Shocking that we went through this entire campaign with an animal companion that just wouldn't die. Which is, for people who are familiar with D&D, animal companions for druids is sort of just over-glorified meat shields.
Yeah, this one wouldn't die. We had... Oh god, what was his first character?
We had a player that went through multiple characters.
Well, we had a couple, but one who ended a suicide of it.
He started off with a bard/barbarian.
That's right.
And he went through a couple others as time went on, and we'll get to those.
Yeah.
We also had a paladin, who was a first-time player.
Pretty generic paladin stuff, yeah.
And we also had... Well, starting out, she played a berserker. And she went through a few characters as well. So we had a fairly big group of about 6 players, and as a DM, that was very frustrating, getting everyone together. All the other DMs that are watching this will probably understand the concept of herding cats.
But none of us forgot our pants.
Oh, thank God. My heart goes out to you, Spoonie. For any who watch Spoonie's videos and understand the players who forget pants. But fortunately, Kirk here was one of the better players.
I remembered all of my pants. What?
Getting into the actual campaign itself, there was a lot of talk into making characters that fit well with the campaign. Being that it was primarily a location-based adventure, I mean, it's called the Shackled City. Generally speaking, with a name like that, you better have something to do with a city that involves shackles in some way, and keep that as the main focus of the campaign. And one of the main focuses was the Temple of St. Cuthbert. Kirk played Colbert, who was a cleric of St. Cuthbert, and another one of our players, Georgiana, played Amaya, who was a paladin of St. Cuthbert. And they really helped to kind of rally the other players into the campaign. Because starting with Chapter 1, the initial counter that starts everything off was that there is this cleric named Rufus who's being assaulted in the alley by these thieves that were the members of the Last Laugh Thieves Guild. And while he was being assaulted, all the PCs miraculously happened to be in the area to respond and took down...
Oh, look! An event is happening! I should go look at it.
Yeah, pretty much that. Calls to adventures are always haphazard in D&D from my experience as a DM. Because first of all, you have the players make their characters, and then as DM you're like, alright, how do I get these guys to work together? Fortunately, they decided, hey, we just saved this cleric who's now gonna run off with us. Oh, but before that, I need to preface a lot of this by the fact that the players were a little higher level than what the campaign calls for. The campaign's like, start at first level. And from my experience, where we had a party that was 5th level going through this adventure, when we hit the start of it, a first level party would have been wiped out really fast. It's a very brutal campaign. So having them start out a little higher level made things a little easier starting out, but overall, it made things flow a little quicker. In particular, because they captured the female assassin that was assaulting Rufus.
Did she actually have a name?
Yeah, it was Jelly. You guys never figured that out because you just dragged her into the dungeons of St. Cuthbert and tortured her every chance you got.
What was that? 3 times? No. Twice. And then one of us met her 3rd time.
Yeah. But so they dragged her off, interrogated her, or rather, Jenya, who was one of the major NPCs at the Temple of St. Cuthbert, did that.
I loved those interactions.
And then
just as the cleric that didn't want to do anything. What are you doing? I just want to sleep. Well, heal or something. Like the whole mindset of Colbert was like, oh, well, if I heal, that means I don't have to actually run up and do anything, as long as I keep everyone else alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Which didn't help being a Surubar, because everything that was demonic wanted to kill me.
His character was a descendant of Surubar Spellmason. One of the interesting things about this campaign book is that right in the back, there's a bunch of little quirks you can give the PCs to trigger certain events throughout the campaign. And his just was like, I'm a descendant of Surubar Spellmason, the guy who made this city on top of a volcano. We'll be talking a lot about that.
Yeah, just throwing that out there. If anyone's actually played this campaign, I want you to keep this mindset of the character that doesn't want to do anything. Say, cleric, St. Cuthbert, and Sign of Surubar. Just fester for a minute how much shit I end up getting in trouble with.
The answer's a lot.
A lot of shit.
So
I picked the story NPC.
That you did.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
And by NPC you mean PC.
Whatever. Shut up. Keep talking, I mean.
Alright. So they get the call to adventure and they find out a lot of people have gone missing and the thieves were roughing off Rufus because he was trying to track down this orphan that got stolen away from this orphanage that's run by the Temple of Colbert, which makes 0 sense. Oh, sorry. Getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Temple of St. Cuthbert, which makes 0 sense because here we are, we're the Church of Justice. We run orphanages because that's what we do. And we don't do things like tell the orphans to go take vengeance because that would make too much sense.
I know what I should have done.
You should have done a lot of things.
I should have bred them to be tools of revenge for the church. Oh, none of your parents love you. You must go hunt them down. I mean, I'm a good cleric.
Your parents are dead.
Some of them. You don't know that. You didn't get backstory of the orphans. Some of them just could have left on the doorstep because the parents didn't want them because they got pregnant on prom night.
No, but I'm surprised this book doesn't give them backstory.
Yeah.
More on that in a bit.
Yeah.
So they go through and they find out, hey, these people who are missing, they're being dragged underneath the city in some ancient ruins. And it's like, oh my god, this city's built on ancient ruins. This is amazing. So they go into these ruins of this gnomish city called Zazardoon. Now, by city, I think the correct term would probably be amusement park, because there are all sorts of illusions and neat things, and like there's this forest that has all these illusions that through it that are really cool and immense. And lots of description. This book loves description to the point where I used to skip over some sentences because you'd have a block of text. But so this gnomish city or amusement park, however you want to call it, all the gnomes that were in there vanished because there's this magical disease called the vanishing, which made them all disappear from reality, not just invisible, just gone, which spread through magical items. And so the adventure party goes through. They find a bunch of enemy creatures that are living through it who happen to have the ability to turn invisible, which, for a city where there's a magical disease that turns people invisible, and that's a big warning sign. You think the monsters that turn invisible would have a thought of, you know what? I think since I can naturally turn invisible, I should go to the one place in the world that has a disease that turns people invisible and makes them vanish forever. Because that's a smart location move. There's a lot of things that are kind of interesting about that. Oh, yeah. How about that one gnomish drilling machine that they have? Where, let's see if I can find it, because
it only had, what, like...
they had a couple commands.
Couple commands in it? I know which command you're thinking of.
Yes, I am. The automaton factory, no, that isn't it. Yes. So, here we go. Here are some commands that the drilling machine, the pulverizer automaton, from the Monster Manual 2 for anyone who's following along with their library of books. And the simple commands you can give in GNOME are stuff like halt, turn left, turn right, and kill all humans.
I love my drilling machine comes with an option of kill all humans.
How bad must human-gnome relations be to have a command to kill all humans?
Maybe that's just like a default command in all, gnomish machines.
Maybe.
Knead, stir, blend, kill all humans. I love when my blender comes with that option.
I mean, you could see the logic if they had a command for kill all gnolls, because there's a footnote in the beginning of the book that, oh yeah, gnolls are the most dominant race in this area. This never comes up, by the way.
No.
You encounter gnolls.
Fun fact. They're a dominant race.
One programmed encounter with gnolls. One.
But they're dominant.
Yep. All over the place.
Can't go stone.
All over the one place.
Yep. Random encounters, boatloads of them. Dominant race, one planned encounter.
Okay, so we're continuing. We went through Zazardoon. We found a stairwell heading down.
Yep, going down into a dwarven fortress. So we have the city of Cauldron, the Shackled City, the main thing that's based around. Underneath it, Zazardoon, a gnomish amusement park. Underneath that, the Malachite Fortress, which is a dwarven stronghold, built on top of the Underdark. This isn't all that's underneath this one volcano. This one volcano that everything thinks that, you know what, here's a volcano, we're going to build our civilization on it. And then other people were like, we're also going to build our civilization top of your civilization. And maybe that's why the gnomes hate the humans, because after the vanishing happened and everyone went away, the humans were like, hey, you know what? I'm going to build our city on top of this gnomish amusement park. And it's going to be cool.
Cool story. So, Sean, how would you tell them, Nexus, whatever, internets?
I has an internet name.
Yes, you do. Alright, so, how would you tell them how we get past the guards? While you do that, I'm just going to check what the time is. Okay, we're so good.
So, Ben was playing his bard / barbarian at this point. He had a cool idea going with it, that he go into some prestige classes and stuff. It wasn't really working out for him. So we encounter some hobgoblin guards, or rather they encounter it, since, you know, I'm running all the NPCs.
4 guards, I believe. Is it 4?
Yep, 4 hobgoblin guards.
4 guards, okay.
He rolls a bluff check when they're trying to say, yeah, we're new guards here, and, you know, we're just getting through, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the hobgoblins are like, I don't believe you, and this doesn't make any sense. You're not, obviously, here to be guards or anything. And so Ben's character promptly says, well, it's my first day. Bluff check. Natural 20. Now, I have a house rule that natural 20s, you take 20, you add 10, then you add your skill modifiers. So it starts off at 30 with a lot of his bluff, because he put a lot of ranks in it. It's a really high roll. Hobgoblins, 2 of them crit fail. Rolled a 1. Another one rolled like a 2 or a 3. And the other guy rolled decently, and he got a lot of modifiers because obviously he was lying. There was no doubt that he was lying. So you had 3 goblins, or hobgoblins, sorry, who were saying like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. And one guy being like, are you listening to this? No, he's obviously lying. There's no way he's not lying.
But he was outnumbered 3 to 1.
And the other guys were like, you're being a jerk. What the hell's wrong with you? This is this guy's first day, and you're acting like a jerk. Come on, we gotta let him through. And the group gets through.
It worked. Oh, the first group. Then we get to the second group of hobgoblin guards beyond that door, which are like, no.
And they're like, yep, you're guards, all right? Yeah, that, not, no. And so Ben repeated, it's my first day. And they're looking at him like he has some intellectual disability. But, you know what? They let him through because they're like, you know what? Our boss is going to curb stomp him. So they get through, and the boss for the dungeon is sitting there. He's like some half troll, half something.
Check. Okay, good. Yeah. Actually, you look that up. I'm gonna cut this off. All right. So part 2 in a second. Go.
Taking me all this time to look through this.
Yes, all that long time that I cut in between.
Yeah. So Chasmogen, a half troll, half dwarf, with a long backstory Because this book loves giving unnecessary backstories about how he was never loved as a child and all this tragedy. And I'm like, you know what? It's never going to come up. And I don't think the party would care even if it did.
We really didn't.
So this guy actually isn't dumb as bricks. Surprisingly for after all. And he asked them a question about some creature. I forget. It might have been like a manticore or something.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, which he doesn't have working for him. And so the party's like, yeah, we totally saw the manticore. Yep. He totally let us through. And then he attacks the party. Because, no. And some of the other patrons, because this was the main slave ring where they were selling all the people they've been abducting. And there's a demon there that points right at good old priest Colbert, and he's like, Suramar! And
thank God I had meat shields in front of me.
And tries to attack him. They fight, kill the half-troll, kill the demon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Georgiana was right in the way of him too.
Oh yeah. Good old paladin.
Meat shield.
So they fight through it. And then a beholder shows up with this woman who's veiled, who happens to be one of the nobles of the city. So, Amaya, our paladin, was a noble, so she got a role on that. Doc X-Laxon, Brian's character, he was a noble, playing a swashbuckler beguiler. He got a role on that to figure out who she was. Because, hey, not a lot of nobles in the city. But they failed. They're just very suspicious of her. And the beholder was like, I want this child. And everyone in the party was like, nah. And then they did their knowledge checks and realized, this is a beholder. Bunch of level 5 characters. They're not going to see beholders running around. This is a monster of legend that says, I want that child. And I want to put him back in the orphanage. So they do some wheeling and dealing, make sure the kid goes back to the orphanage. Because he's one of the people who have this mysterious, invisible mark on them that marks them as one of the Shackled born. Shackled City, this comes up later. As well as the Barbarian happens to also be one of the Shackled born. And there's this interchange talking about weird nightmares and stuff. The Barbarian gets interested in the kid. And the Beholder goes off with the kid. And everyone's like, happily ever after, right? Well, being that they're an adventuring party, they're like, well, killed the boss. Let's go loot the rest of the dungeon. Ha ha!
Yep.
Yeah, we only ended up with one person dead. And, you managed to free some of the other slaves, which was good.
Yeah.
And you got the locksmith's rat familiar, which they had to go through a locksmith's house to get to the thing, and the bad guys kidnapped the rat, but a side plot no one cared about.
In all honesty, I think that's one of the few dungeons we actually went to go loot hunting after we got the core part of story done. I don't think we actually went through any extra dungeon portions like the rest of the dungeons we went through.
Thank everything for that. There were so many encounters everywhere that it's like we're walking into another room, alright, another fight. Felt more like I was trying to tabletop a Final Fantasy game than Dungeons and Dragons.
So we got the familiar,
Yep.
We went back upstairs.
Yep, went through everything, got the paladin resurrected because she got crunched by, I think it was another one of those pulverizer automatons, huge hammer, go.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, and the reason we got pulverized is because half of us went back to the entrance or something, and her and one other person went, to go free people.
Yeah, it was party splitting. Don't do it. And so they all went back up. Fang, who's played by Jess at this point, became a merchant, sold off all his stuff. Druid merchant, go figure. But I'm kind of lax with how druids kind of operate in terms of role-playing. And, her doing the merchanty type things made everything easier in the long run. They split the party loot. evenly, which, for an adventuring party, they did really well with that. I really appreciated the adventuring party that's like, okay, let's work well together. Eventually, Fang traded hands a couple of times, but we'll get back to that later. And a DM's nightmare with PCs that exchange hands too many times. Hannah, who was one of our players, had her barbarian Ted, who was very mentally deficient. And she wasn't having a lot of fun with him, so he kind of wandered off at this point. Which was good because I like my players to have fun. And I don't want them to play characters that they're going to be herder.
Yeah, and it was early enough where in the campaign where it didn't hurt anything. So she brought in Nails.
Yep, Nails, who was a spell thief who was buddies with Doc X Laxon because they went to mage school together at the Lantern Academy.
So what's the next?
The next chapter 2, Drakthar's Way. Drakthar was this low-level vampire hobgoblin who was a jerk. He had a bunch of goblins who were in a secret goblin lair underneath Cauldron.
A lot of things underneath Cauldron.
This one was under a spa.
Oh, that's right.
They thought...
we fucked over that spa keeper.
Oh my god. So there was this dwarf adventurer who was brought under the vampire's thrall through domination. And he was just, retired adventurer, dwarf, lost his eye, had like a ruby set in an eye patch. They knocked this guy out when they found out that there was some sinister stuff going on underneath his hot spring that he turned into a spa. And they looted him blind, and I had to stop to explain to them that no, if you're trying to be lawful or good, or especially in the case of the paladin, lawful good, you do not loot, people who live in the city, like, crazily.
In my defense, I was enjoying the hot spring when the party did this.
Fair enough.
No, it was me and someone else was in the hot spring. I can't remember who.
It was mostly Fang who did it. And I adore Jess as a person, but her alignment, it isn't lawful good, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral. It's Skyrim. That's her alignment. It is Skyrim. So I had to kind of pull her in and, explain some things about how you act as a character in D&D again. She's a long-lasting player. Played a lot of my campaigns that I run. But I still have to explain that it's a really evil act to knock out someone, tie them up, and loot them blind.
That's bullshit. Come on. At least she did the proper thing of tying them up so they're comfortable.
They stole his eye patch. They were like, hey, there's a ruby in this eye patch. Yoink!
Anyway.
So
we go downstairs in the hot tub.
They go through the secret passageway. And they go around and they fight a bunch of goblins. And actually, I give mad props to Brian playing Doc X Laxon. Because as a noble who's a beguiler and a swashbuckler, he liked to actually roleplay through encounters. Like, there's a small clan of goblins, because there were like 5 clans there. And this was we're a bunch of mage goblins, and we don't know what we're doing! So he talked them out of combat and was like, we can kill you, or you can come work with me. The Aslaxon family, they own this inn in town, the Koinexi. And it's a brothel / pub. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to expand my business. I'm going to get a bunch of goblins, and they're going to make magical items for me, and brew potions and all that other thing. It worked out well. Especially because a couple of the goblins started traveling around with them, helping them kill the other goblins who were jerks to them because they were spellcasters. And the other goblins were like, spellcasters. And they went around, killed their fellows, and eventually they helped kill the vampire, which this was the first encounter of dominate, kill your friends. every time I used a mind compulsion, that was usually the first command.
And it almost always hit Ben.
Yeah.
It almost always hit Ben.
And it was great at one point because as time went on, his barbarian wasn't really friends with anyone. So he got the command, kill your friends! And he started targeting one person. And the vampire was like, ah. So, like, trying to figure it out as the combat's going on, why he's not really hurting his friends too much. Because they were his friends.
This point, they're not really his friends.
But they kill him. And I mean perma-kill him. Not like, oh, he turns to mist and gets away. No, they use spells and make sure the guy's dead.
Yeah.
And they go up. They make good with the dwarf. And the dwarf's like, yeah, anytime you need a bath, come. No problem. The guy seems to have completely forgotten. Oh, wait, they use spells to erase his memory that he got beaten half to death.
Yeah.
So
we're good guys. We didn't hurt you at all.
That was a good chunk of chapter 2.
Yeah.
This was when they were still getting comfortable as characters, still really getting into the flow of things, not a lot of church things.
Not yet.
But then chapter 3, flood season.
This was pretty good.
They have a flooding season, which, the largest issue they have in the city is the fact that it floods once a year. Which, considering they live on a volcano, I think that's pretty good, wouldn't you?
Only once a year? Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happens is there's rainfall. It's kind of a jungle setting. And the lake in the middle of the crater, in this volcano, because they build it around the rim, floods. So, once a year, the high priest of St. Cuthbert goes on a pilgrimage to go get some ordered wands of weather control, because obviously you can't just have people in town make them. You have to travel to the capital city.
Can I note that this is supposed to be high priest? A high priest. Later on, clerics can just learn to do that and don't need wands. So for high priest, he was a bit of a scrub. And
no statting on this guy whatsoever. Yeah. I have no idea what this guy would be capable of. So, by the way, this doesn't matter because he gets killed off screen.
Yeah.
Which is the call to adventure for chapter 3 as they go to the Lucky Monkey Inn.
Oh, and mind you, we're skipping one fact. One of the things that the head of the church has is this mace. What's the spell called?
It's like a divinate. No, it's a. I forget the spell.
It's something like basically once per day you can ask a question of your god, and usually they give you that little riddly kind of response. Like it's not that bad, but you have to ask like you would ask a genie for a spell, sort of thing. Yeah. Which we would before anyone would ask something. After a while, we learned to talk amongst ourselves like, how are we going to ask this? Because we give it too broadly. Nexas here can be a bit of a douche, so we don't want to get fucked over. You can be.
Well, the DM is the devil, which is why my costume's strangely appropriate.
Yeah, I know. So we basically asked the base like, well, where is this guy? And the base essentially responds with, yeah, he's kind of fucking dead. Like, oh.
I think that's when you were handed the Star of Justice.
No. Because we'll get to that. It's not until afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. So we go out to this inn. Now the inn's actually set up like it's actually mapped, right?
It's a big inn.
It's a big inn and it's mapped for like the different rooms and stuff. We didn't do that. We went up. We stood outside the inn and basically said, "Hey, come on out, bring it." And so we taught the entirety of the inn outside.
And it's a big gang of thugs.
Yeah.
Comprised of one of the thieves' guilds in town, the Alley Bashers, as well as a bunch of hill folk, which are another group. And they're like, we got numbers, we're going to go slaughter them. Nope. PCs just go and kill their way through. And eventually they get through everything and they find one miscreant kind of still hanging around. A girl. And the barbarian decides, you know what? I'm going to go have sex with her because I know she's with the group that was just trying to kill us. But you know what?
Yeah.
It was Jill.
Yeah, from the very beginning, the one that we captured and tortured, is that one.
And she had a vendetta against the party, so she went up and, she was an assassin. And she was decent level enough, and they managed to take her down the first time with a couple lucky moves and good use of spells. And
Ben wasn't lucky.
no, death attack, dead.
Yeah.
Dead
through concubine.
Yeah, something like that.
And I don't think any of us really cared when we went upstairs. Like, oh, he's dead.
Yep.
Really? Oh,
What?
we'll need a new one.
Yeah.
That's really like, oh.
He decided that he was bored of the character and he wanted to try something different.
Yeah, he unfortunately kind of was one of those that gets bored of characters, so that was something we had to kind of work around.
Well, not too much of an issue, because his next character he stayed with for a while.
Well, the character did kind of get refreshed halfway through its run.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, so that, he's dead. The other miscreant, we basically kind of punch, around, to get the information about the Wands weather control. Did they still have it, or did we have to go somewhere else to get them?
They had a couple, but then it was the Ebony Triad who had all the other ones. And this was a job, to control the lake in the middle of the town. They had to get a bunch of these wands.
Yeah. And
the Ebony Triad is this unholy union between three dark gods, Hexter, Vecna, and... Checking my book.
Checking the book, checking the time.
Okay. But it isn't important because it never gets discussed at any other point, because they were like, yes, there's this dog gathering of priests of three gods. Nero was the other one. And, it's dark and sinister, and we don't do much with it. So, they're in these Kopru ruins, which the Kopru is this other type of monstrous race, which I actually moved the location on this because it was underneath the city of Cauldron. Again.
That volcano is a volcano of Holden.
Yeah, apparently. Big volcano. Huge volcano. That, a couple spells cast, dozen centuries ago is preventing from going nuclear. Doesn't make me feel safe. So I moved that to a far out location, to a town that, the party would never normally go to. The town of Hollowski. So they travel out there, they do some stuff, they go into the ruins, and this is where I start becoming a little bit evil. Like, they have to cross this underground lake, and I made the ropes break, dropping them in the water. And there was a demonic creature in there, which Fang wild-shaped into, I think it was a shark, and then proceeded to brutally murder it.
That sounds about right for Jess.
We had a bit of the phenomena, which is called Codzilla, which is cleric or druid of Zilla, which, for those of you really familiar with D&D, you understand that clerics and druids can be very powerful at times. Druids especially, because you can min-max by being like, yep, strength, dex, con, we don't need that. Take wild spell, take some other things, and just wild shape into something that has decent physical stats and then just punk the heck out of whatever you go into. Fang was a pretty even balanced character, because I insist on characters being balanced when they're built, because we use a point build. But she still held the majority of combat by herself, while everyone else typically flip-flopped and being effective or not.
Yeah.
And then they went through the ruins of the Kopru stronghold. And they find more alley bashers, which they kill pretty solidly. At one point, Fang picked up a necklace of fireballs, and she thought it was perfectly good to open a door, throw a fireball, close the door, open the door, still alive? Okay, another fireball, close the door.
You were never going to tell her about the whole shrinking with that spell, were you?
No, because I have some conversations about stuff that I do not like as DM. Fireball starts off as a marble-sized spell until it hits detonation, and then it, plumes out. I prefer the more cinematic, okay, we have a fireball spell, you do this rah, ha, kind of like a Hadoken, and then plumes out when it hits.
Keyhole.
Yeah, it would be technically possible to shoot fireballs through keyholes if you're smart about it, which, no, I don't allow.
Alright. Go. Pause it here.
Okay.
We're running that minute mark. Be back as soon as we can. Continue as to the aftermath of no head priest. My character has to do shit.